Hello world! Those little icons you see in the corner of browser tabs may not be so innocent after all. New research from the University of Illinois details how these seemingly innocuous little images could be tracking your every move, and nothing stops them. Not clearing your cache or cookies, or even using incognito mode can stop these things. That's coming up in this video where we break down and dissect cybersecurity related tech news. Those little icons are called favicons and are typically 32 by 32 pixels in size. Introduced into HTML way back in 1999, they exist simply to help you figure out which tab is which. What could go wrong? Well, when you visit a web page you haven't been to before, your browser automatically realizes it hasn't got a favicon for that particular page, so it downloads it from the website and stores it in a special favicon database, so that when you visit the same web page again, your browser doesn't need to go through the hassle of re-downloading it. Sounds pretty innocuous, though this is where we go downhill. The researchers figured out that by introducing a number of automatic redirects between you clicking a link and the page actually loading, they could program a special favicon fingerprint into your browser that uniquely identifies you. Think about it like this. When you visit a web page you haven't been to before, your browser downloads the favicon. If it's already been to that web page, it doesn't download the favicon. Thereby, a website can tell if you've already visited a certain page or not. By forcing your browser to visit a chain of pages before it loads the page you want, it can secretly load a unique pattern of favicons into your browser. A pattern in this scenario just refers to a list of pages for which it has favicons in its database and those for which it hasn't. By utilizing a large enough number of redirects, a website can store a different pattern for each user. With 4 redirects, it can create 16 patterns, but with say 32 redirects, it can create 4.5 billion unique patterns. That's about one for each person on Earth with internet access. I hope this all makes sense. 32 redirects might only add 2 seconds to page loading times, so the speed bump wouldn't really be noticeable to most people. You can't get around this by deleting your cookies or cache. Doing that won't affect the database of favicons in any way, so there's no obvious and easy way to clear your favicons. In addition, not even incognito will help you, as whether you're in incognito or not, the same database of favicons is used. So which browsers are affected by this issue? Only Safari? Chrome, and also Edge for the one guy still using that. It also works on mobile versions of these browsers, though it doesn't work on Firefox, but there's an interesting story and actually some drama behind that, which we'll get to in a bit. This method of tracking has been dubbed a supercookie, because like a cookie, it can be used to identify you, but this cookie is way more difficult to remove. There is a website, supercookie.me, that demonstrates this technique. By tapping demo, it'll shove you through a number of redirects, slowed down a bit so you can see exactly what's going on. Notice how for some redirects a favicon appears, but for others you don't get one. The combination is your unique favicon pattern. The code for this site is open source and freely available on GitHub, though of course for educational and demonstrational purposes only. Google have said they're actively working on a fix for this method of tracking. Apple have said they're looking into it, though no other browser developers have said anything on the topic, other than Brave, which have actually already fixed this. I mentioned the supercookie does not work on Firefox, though not because the Firefox dev team knew about this vulnerability and succeeded in squashing it, but rather there's a bug in Firefox, which means for some reason it downloads the favicon each time you visit a page and doesn't check its internal favicon database. This is where some drama arose. The researchers filed a bug report to the Firefox dev team, but didn't explain that by fixing the bug, this supercookie vulnerability would have been introduced to Firefox. In the comments section of the Ars Technica article on this story, a lot of people weren't too happy about this and accused the researchers of trying to introduce this bug into Firefox, such that when their paper was released, it would have garnered much more attention. The logic behind that accusation makes sense, I suppose. The worse the vulnerability, the more coverage it's going to get in the media, though one of the researchers responded, essentially saying they filed the bug report before they discovered the whole supercookie thing, so it doesn't look like they meant any harm. The good news is that whilst yes, the supercookie is an active vulnerability and could most definitely be used in practice, it looks like the researchers were probably first to the party and managed to shut it down before anyone else arrived. There isn't really much you can do to protect yourself from this other than to, well, disable favicons, I suppose. For behind the scenes footage, do follow me on Instagram. As always, sources will be linked in the description. Stay tuned for more hacking videos and have a good one.